Place your bets.
I'll take 703 and 30.
Oh, man. This is wow, is it a powerful story? Hey, we're live on Facebook. Say hi to
We are live
Facebook.
on Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
At Facebook.
Watch what you say. People are listening. Good to see you on Facebook. We're going to be starting in 1 minute. Let everybody on the Zoom side. Here we go. We can start letting people on the Zoom side in. It'll take a while.
All right, here comes the theme music.
All right. Welcome everybody to VBC at Home Live. This is our Monday, June 29th, 2020 edition of VBC at Home Live. And I'm Todd, I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. And this is a production of the Veterans Breakfast Club. We've been doing these veteran storytelling events since 2008. In March 2020, we moved everything online and man, have they been wonderful. I mean, I miss all you guys and girls, but one wonderful thing about having these events online is that we're able to reach people beyond Western Pennsylvania and hear their stories. And tonight is really a special one. It's the story of really a simple act of kindness by Bao Tran, who is our special guest tonight. In April of 1972, saved a little baby, 10-month-old baby, and that baby, Kimberly Mitchell, is with us tonight. But first, I just want to introduce everybody and let everybody still come in on the Zoom side. Again, my name is Todd. Welcome. With me is Ellie DiPastino. She is in Chicago. She is our communications and media producer. We have Libby DiPastino over here. She is our summer intern. And we have Sean Hall, who's our director of programming. Hello, Sean.
Hello.
And then we have Lauren Del Ricci. She's our associate director here. And with us is also Jim Roberts. He's just hanging out with us. I don't know why he's here. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I stumbled onto this website and it looked interesting.
Thank you. We have Jim Roberts, who is a Vietnam
He's not
veteran.
dead yet.
And he's wearing a darkly funny shirt announcing that he's not dead yet. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. And thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. We like to begin with the national anthem, and sometimes we have somebody with us who can lead us in the national anthem. Oh, I think we have somebody. I see him. I've spotted him right in the middle of my little grid here.
And I see his face turning red. Sorry, Mac.
Mac, Kelly, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Todd?
Good. How's your voice tonight?
It's dapper as always.
Dapper as always. Now, as you know, we have Marianne Mangini, who's a professional singer, and she's absolutely wonderful. We have her on standby to lead us in the national anthem, but it's nice to have a veteran, a Marine Corps veteran especially, lead us. So, Mac, would you be up for leading us in the national anthem tonight?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at it.
Okay, I was, looking for a little bit more robust affirmation.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna spotlight you here and remember, start low.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
That was wonderful.
Wow, Mac, you are
Crushed
so
it.
good.
Crushed.
You are so good. Thank you so much for doing that. Matt, did you sing much when you were in the Marine Corps?
No, I sang a lot prior to the Marine Corps. Won my high school talent show junior, senior year, placed third in Brigade Idol freshman year, but no, I haven't done much singing since.
Okay. Well,
I brought the
wow, is
kids
that
down.
good?
The kids came
Thank
down, they were trying to figure out what was going on.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for leading us here, and welcome again to everybody who's joining us on the Facebook live side and the Zoom side. Once again, this is VBC at Home Live. My name is Todd. I'm the director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. Bill Boswell, I see, is really moving around out there on the Zoom side here. And, you know, these programs, I think, are important nowadays because we've been so isolated, so many of us, and social distancing has become social isolation in many ways. You know, I've seen far fewer people than I normally see in my ordinary day-to-day life. And I know that is becoming a problem for many people. Lauren, you and I were just talking about that before we started up here tonight.
Yeah, we were. And hi, everyone. I'm Lauren. I'm a Navy veteran and I've been with VBC for 3 years. And last week, we kind of celebrated 3 months since we started VBC at Home Live. And last week in particular, my last Zoom event was on a Thursday evening, actually. And I had Friday with no Zoom, Saturday, Sunday. And by the time today rolled around, I thought, geez, I really, I felt different, you know. The connectivity that the VBC and Pittsburgh Community Veterans provides for me is kind of just helping so much right now. So I wanted to take a minute to just say from my heart, you know, social interaction and enrichment that VBC provides, along with any service that you or a veteran friend or family member might need. You can come to VBC for any of that. We have 2, you know, specialists on the team that refer to PA Serves, which is a wonderful collaboration of networks that could serve virtually any need that you or, you know, veteran friend or family member could have. So please do reach out if anyone's kind of feeling socially isolated or disconnected at this time, or any other more serious need they may have. We're here for you, and we always want to remind you of that. We have the slide up from one of our friends in the industry, PA Serves, right now. And you also know our number, 412-623-9029, or vbcpgh.org, and we'll get you connected. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we've made it 3 months.
Yeah, we've made it 3 months, and you know, PA Serves is a wonderful organization here in Western Pennsylvania that helps to connect veterans to any services or resources that they may need. And right now, you know, a big resource is just social connection. I mean, I think most of the referrals that we get coming to the Veterans Breakfast Club from PA Serves, it's really just people, veterans and others, who just kind of want to connect to the community. So yes, please do. If you're a veteran, or if you know a veteran who could use some services, who maybe has a question about benefits, or just wants to connect to a veterans community, please do contact us and we will connect you to PA Serves. Thank you for that, Lauren. And also, speaking of that, you know, a wonderful thing to do if you're want social connection is to come to these events. And our next event, as you know, is on Wednesday. We do these events Monday nights at 7 p.m., Wednesday afternoons at 1 p.m. And we have a program scheduled for Wednesday. Lauren, do you want to tell people about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we partnered with local institutions of higher ed to focus on the stories and the voices of student veterans, both in the Pittsburgh area and beyond. We're going to have some friends dial in from New Jersey. And we're going to, connect cross state lines and really see what this virtual platform can afford us here at the VBC. We're going to talk about the GI Bill. We're going to talk, with student veteran providers that are in higher education and have some great stories lined up for you. That starts at 1:00. And we have about, 5 student veterans that are going to tell you about their service and some more interesting anecdotes that'll go along with that.
And I would like to hear, because, some of you know that I taught college and I would teach a course on the Vietnam War every fall. And I often had veterans in class and like they stood out. You kind of knew who they were, on the first day of class. And I'm very curious about like different people's experiences, especially if you were in the military and then went back to college, what that was like coming in, with maybe 2 years or 4 years or 6 years of military service and kind of sitting in a room with 18, 19, 20-year-olds, like my daughter Libby here. And, just, I mean, you kind of feel like a fish out of water, I would imagine. I know that, we have everyone from World War II veterans down to more recent vets come. So I look forward to hearing some of those stories on Wednesday.
Yeah, you always know you're the veteran in the class when you do the group project alone. It's usually a good indicator.
And then, of course, on Thursday morning, we have our VBC coffee hour, and that is an hour of informal conversation from 9 to 10 on Thursday mornings right here. And Libby or Ellie, you put the links here on the Zoom side. I hope you do so also on the Facebook Live side. And by the way, we're going to move our Thursday morning coffee hours, I think, to Friday morning. So, but we'll let you know. We'll let you know exactly when that will happen. We are going to move it to Friday morning. I think it'll accommodate some of the people who want to join us better. So we'll talk about that. But this week is going to be on Thursday. And then finally, Sean Hall. How are you, Sean?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Why don't you tell people about the podcast episode, Truth About War, that we have up today?
Sure. I had an itchy trigger finger. I was setting up some information in our chat. I'll add the link to the website. I'm new. My name's Sean Hall. I am not a veteran. I'm new to the VBC as the director of programming. I've been so enamored with this organization for the past year and a half, and I was so excited to join. And I've been able to work some with the new podcast that we are doing. We are up to episode 9 of Truth About War. If you've never listened to a podcast, sort of a good half-hour, 40-minute radio, sort of old-timey radio type interview. But we have this really wonderful Truth About War podcast that you can go to the website. I'll put it in the chat. Ambassador Rick Barton is our this week's interview. He is an ambassador since 2008, I believe, and did 42 different countries in 40 years.
I think it was 42 countries in 42 years. I think.
That's incredible. But yes, so we have 8 other episodes on the website. We'd love for you to come in and check that out. Also, if you could e-blast it out to your friends, let them know to listen to these. They're really wonderful interviews with some high-profile veterans. So we're hoping to get some feedback on what you think as well. And I'm super excited to join everybody, and thank you all.
And I have to say, the Rick Barton interview is really interesting because it's a little different from other things that we've done. It's very high-level geopolitical kind of analysis and strategic thinking. He's not a veteran, but he lives in war. He lives in war zones, so he knows wars as well as a military veteran would, and has a very interesting perspective on the wars, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan, and also some hot spots that he sees developing maybe in the next decade or so. So yes, Truth About War. You could access the podcast at the truthaboutwarpodcast.com. Or just subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I think Ellie or Sean will put a link in the chat. Definitely. I believe so. All right, let's get to our stories. Oh, no. One more thing before we get to the stories. How could I forget this? We have a special event coming up on July 20th, don't we? Look behind me. Look at all that. Great. Okay, here's the deal. On July 20th, Monday, July 20th, at 6 p.m., we're having a special event. It's called Dinner and a Show with MREs. It only costs $25. For $25, we will send you a real live MRE, like a beef patty jalapeno pepper jack, for example. See, Kim's smiling because she was in the Navy and she didn't have to eat these. No, you probably did because you went to Iraq. You probably had to eat some of these. For $25, you'll get an MRE. There are 24 menu items. We'll send you an MRE, and then on Monday, July 20th at 6 p.m., we'll all open them up and we'll eat them together, and you'll be able to give your reviews of them. We'll compare them. And we will, have conversations about food in the military. Now, we're working on a special guest or two for this event. We are definitely going to have some musical entertainment. And again, it's only $25. And if you've seen our promo video, you'll know that the main question I think we're going to get is, why the hell would I spend $25 for lousy food? And my answer is, it's not that lousy. And second of all, it's a great way to kind of get together and spark some memories of eating mess hall stories or chow stories in the military. We get a lot of great stories about food, and it's a nice way to support the Veterans Breakfast Club. A little bit of the money that we raise from it will be going to kind of keeping this virtual programming going. So please do join us for our dinner and a show. And Ellie, if you could put the link to the video in the chat, people can watch the video. Oh, and also the link to Eventbrite, because you have to reserve your spot through Eventbrite. So I have these MREs stacked up in my garage. I could see you all look extremely thrilled to eat MREs.
I think Monica said she wants to place an order. Did I hear that right? Monica wants two.
Bob Mizwa,
Someone gave.
You ate.
I've had MREs.
You've had MREs, Monica.
I think we still have a case that one of our dear soldiers that we helped from overseas, we sent them non-MRE food. They sent us back to a case of MREs.
As a thank you.
As kind of a thank you, saying, we didn't eat these because you sent us stuff that was edible. Enjoy. And I think it's sitting on a shelf at OTA as we speak. I'm going to have to check it out. But I will most probably be signing up for the event.
So again, I'm sorry.
I'm available. You know my crazy schedule.
Oh, I hope you do. And I just want to throw this in too. I was thinking about our special event on July 20th when I was reading in the paper that the USS Intrepid Museum in New York City, the USS Intrepid, World War II era aircraft carrier, it's now a museum. They were scheduling a special exhibit this summer on, get this, Navy cake. I didn't realize cake was such a big deal in the Navy, but it is. Apparently from the 1940s through the 1970s, every meal in the Navy, and maybe Chad Riddle can verify this, every meal in the Navy was served with dessert, including breakfast, and that cake was often served. And if you Google Navy cake, man, the photos that you get, look at that. Jim Roberts, did you ever get anything like this in the Army? I think that silence is deafening. It says it all.
They just unmuted me. No, we never had. I don't know how you would bake that in the little oven we had. We didn't have an oven. We had a canteen cup and a block of C4 we could heat it on, so I don't think we could make that.
Chad, is this how you ate in the Navy?
Todd, honestly, I think that cook did not make it to my ship.
Look at this.
I was on an Admiral's Command flagship, the USS Blue Ridge, and I think there was always a cake baking in the galley. There was always someone decorating a cake. And Todd, you said that desserts are part of every meal, and you're right. And when you're late for chow, guess what? You either have a salad bar or the dessert case, like that spinning, stale, not so sure what that layer is on the top of the cake piece of whatever, but it was food. So you ate it and you were grateful for it.
Oh, great.
Hey,
Man,
Todd.
yes.
Hey, Todd, if you read that story written by Eugene Flucky, every time they had a successful run, they had a lot of cake on board.
They had a lot of cake on board. And I know we have one submariner here, Mike Chirac, and he could maybe testify at some point to how cake aboard the submarines, how that worked. But so I just want to, again, please do join us Monday, July 20th. It'll be a hoot. We're going to have a special guest. I'm trying to get the father of the MRE actually to come on our program. I hope he could make it. There is a father of the MRE, and you know, don't abuse him, please, if he comes on. But tonight it's a really special program. I was joking, kind of not really a joke before we started, that I'm hoping to get through tonight's program without tearing up and just breaking down and blubbering, because it is such a moving story of reunion. On or about April 30th, 1972, during the Easter Offensive and the first battle of Quang Tri City, there was a young ARVN second lieutenant named Bao Tran was getting ready to blow up a bridge across the Mi-Chan River. And he noticed an older man crossing the bridge with a conical hat in his hands. And in the hat was a baby. And Bao ran up to the man, and the man said, "I can't carry the baby any farther. I found the baby on the side of the road clinging to her dead mother. And can you take her?" And so Bao took the baby, and for the next 40 days traveled with this baby to an orphanage, Sacred Heart Orphanage in Da Nang, handed the baby over to the nuns at the orphanage here in the spring of 1972. And the sisters at the orphanage asked Bao to name the baby. And so Bao gave the baby the name Precious Pearl. And I have to say, Precious Pearl is with us tonight. She also goes by Lieutenant Commander Kimberly Mitchell. And Bao Tran, that ARVN soldier, is also with us tonight. And I want to get both their sides of this remarkable story. And I want to start by talking to Kim. Hello, Kim. I'm going to unmute you here. And I'm going to put you... Kim, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for the invite to be with you all tonight.
You know, I'm going to thank also Mac, who's the one who's connected me to you. And I'm grateful because you're in San Diego, so it's, you know, still afternoon, early afternoon there. And just so people know, Kim Mitchell is a Naval Academy graduate, 17 years in the Navy. And now you've been working in the nonprofit field, especially helping with veteran reintegration. And but I want to just start by asking you, what did you know about your background growing up?
Well, growing up, I knew that I was adopted from the orphanage, Sacred Heart Orphanage. I never knew how I got there. And honestly, I never thought I would ever know. So everything that I was ever told was what the nuns at that time had told my adopted family, that I had been abandoned on the street and that I was adopted. And, you know, in September of '72, I was brought over to the United States. So at 10 months old, the only thing I ever knew was growing up here in the United States. My dad was Air Force, so we were stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico for a few years, and then at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Then he retired, and we moved up to northern Wisconsin, where my mother was from, and that's where I spent my entire childhood from first grade through 12th grade in northern Wisconsin. And
that's where you picked up that wonderful accent.
Yeah, well, you know, when I go up to Wisconsin, they think I have the accent, that I have the accent. So,
right. So it's not a really hard Wisconsin accent, but there's a hint of it there.
There is.
And at the risk of appearing like a creep, I'm going to share some photos that I found of you when you were a baby and they're so touching to me. There's your father with you in 1972.
Yes, that's at the Sacred Heart Orphanage right there.
That's at the Sacred Heart Orphanage. What moved your father to adopt you?
Well, he and my mother didn't have any children of their own. So when he was going to be deployed to Vietnam, they said, well, if the opportunity ever came up, to adopt a child, he would. So he would frequently go over to Sacred Heart Orphanage. He was a chaplain's assistant at the chapel there at the air base. And he, you know, he would bring over clothes or supplies or food and whatnot, and just kind of spend some time with the nuns and the children. And one day they plopped a baby in his arms, and I guess it was my lucky day because he decided to adopt baby number 899.
Kim, I'm just realizing now, you were, when he's holding you here, you were about 10 months old or so?
No, I was about probably about 4 or 5 months old, because I was
Okay.
about 10 months old when I came over to the States.
When you came over, okay, because I was going to say you seem very small for 10 months old, but there's another wonderful picture. Oh, what a cutie.
Yeah, I still have that frown on my face.
And did your father talk to you much about, you know, his Vietnam experience?
No, he didn't.
He did
didn't.
not?
He did not talk about it at all. I mean, everything I have is from those pictures there. He didn't talk about it. So, and I didn't really ask. As far as I was concerned, I was an American kid, right? Growing up on a farm in northern Wisconsin, raising cattle, working at the Dairy Queen, playing basketball. It never crossed my mind about a history of that of a personal story of mine. So,
And when those questions probably did cross your mind, he was already dead. He died a tragic sudden death.
yes, well, he was struck by lightning and killed on our farm 2 weeks before I reported into the Naval Academy as a plebe.
Oh.
And so, I ended up going to the Naval Academy, and then ended up having to resign and come home to take care of my mom and my brother, just because there's just a lot of, as you can imagine, there's a lot of family issues at home.
Oh my.
And taking care of them and taking care of the animals that we had. And so it helps me to really understand family structure of what can make a family keep going, which is why I advocate all the time for community support, because it was the community that helped my family. And then when I went back to the Naval Academy is when I was actually able to go back and then complete my degree and then start my Navy career.
What did your father think of you joining the Navy?
Well, he kind of, at that time, when I started looking into the Naval Academy, he really wanted me to go to the Air Force Academy.
Of course, because he's a good
So there
father.
really wasn't a whole lot of support in applying to go Navy.
And why did you choose the Navy over over another branch?
Well, I mean, I will tell you, it was complete marketing and publication. And I met a Navy admiral my 10th grade sophomore year. And up until then, I was completely gung-ho Air Force. And that Navy admiral somehow switched something in my brain, because all of a sudden, after meeting him, I was getting pamphlets and marketing materials from the Naval Academy and the catalogs, and it was all in color and everyone was smiling. So clearly everyone is having a better time at the Naval Academy than what I was seeing at the Air Force Academy.
And here's a picture of you with a sister at Sacred
Yes,
Heart?
that's Sister Marie Angela. She was the head nun that facilitated my adoption at Sacred Heart Orphanage.
And there's another of your dad and Sister Marie. And you decided then in 2011 that you would go to Vietnam. And did you have the expectation that you would find a little bit about your past?
No. It was actually four of us that went to Vietnam, 3 friends and I that I traveled all around the world with. I mean, that was our thing. We would take a vacation together to some random place, and it was usually Europe to vacation. And then it just happened that in 2011, we started talking about my 40th birthday celebration, and the idea came up to why don't we go to Vietnam, since that's where Kim was from. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about Vietnam. And they're like, well, that's your country. You need to know more about it. And so we planned 5 days in country, which is not a lot of time, but we could only take, so many days off. So we did 2 days in Hong Kong to kind of get adapted to the time zone difference, and then flew into Saigon, spent a couple days there, flew up to Da Nang, spent about a day and a half there, and then flew up to Hanoi and spent a couple days there, and then flew out. And I was the one who chose the 3 cities that we were going to visit because one, it was my birthday celebration, so I got to choose. But I chose those 3 cities specifically because I knew that each of the 3 had a significant role to play during the war, and they all 3 have different cultural differences. And so I wanted to see, those were the 3 places. If we were going to visit any place, we were going to visit the 3, and we were going to do the touristy thing. We were going to visit, museums. We were going to go to a resort. We're going to do a lot of shopping at the markets. Unbeknownst to me, though, while we were in Da Nang, the 3 friends of mine who, 2 of them were Navy admiral's aides, so they kind of had resources. And connections. So they had contacted the nuns and set up a meeting for me to meet the nuns while we were in Da Nang.
Wow, so you were kind of surprised to go to the orphanage, meet the nuns, and you showed them this passport that got you out of the country in 1972?
I showed them, I had pictures of them. I had pictures of my passport because I had an iPad and I had all my pictures, my baby pictures on my iPad and whatnot. I showed them these pictures and they were pictures that they'd never seen before. Sister Marie Angela had already passed away. And so they were just, they were thrilled to be able to see it. They told me, they talked to me and told me how they took care of the children. They told me that since I was an infant, I was kept in a building where the infants were kept. And what the nuns told me was that they would look at a child when the child came into the orphanage, and if it looked like the child was mixed, they would put it on one part of the room. And if it was full-blood Vietnamese, another part of the room. And I looked at them, I said, well, where was I? And they're like, oh, you're definitely mixed with something. And I guess if you look at me, a lot of people think I'm more Filipino than Vietnamese. And so they said, then because all the children that were mixed were in one part of the room, if anyone came in to adopt from the orphanage, they would try to encourage them to adopt some of the children that were mixed, because the nuns were already thinking at that time that whoever was left after the war, if they were full-blood Vietnamese, they would have more of a chance of survival than any of the children that looked like they were mixed with a soldier or one of the foreigners that were fighting in Vietnam.
Wow. So did they say that probably when your dad came in, they probably directed him toward you and the other mixed babies?
That's what the nuns told me, yes.
And was it there that you were able to learn the story that that there had been an ARVN soldier?
No. It's a long, drawn out story. So we after Da Nang, we actually went up to Hanoi, as I mentioned. And while we were at Hanoi, the U.S. Embassy called me in for an office call. And they were so impressed with the story, because at that time I was still active duty Navy, as were 2 of my friends that were with me. And they were very impressed that I was working at the Pentagon for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, that they did a press release on my visit back to Vietnam. And that press release came out in September of 2011. And then in May of 2012, that press release was published by a magazine that was printed here in the United States, which was the magazine that was delivered to Bao Tran in 2012. And in October of 2012, this lovely gentleman and his family contacted me to let me know that he was the South Vietnamese Marine that brought me to the orphanage and gave me my name, all of which I had never heard before. So and you can ask Cindy and Bao, it took them a long time for me to answer any emails or phone calls, because I kind of thought that it was a scam. I thought it was a scam.
Yeah. And I think the thing that tipped him off that he was the the Marine or the soldier was that the name Precious Pearl.
Right.
You knew that. You had that piece of information that you learned, right? That you've been named Precious Pearl, which isn't a common name in Vietnam. And so let me go to Bao. Thank you so much for giving us that information. I do want to come back to you, but I want to talk to Bao Tran here. And Bao is with his daughter, Cindy. Hi, Cindy. Xin chào, Bao.
Hi, I'm gonna try.
Okay. Yeah, Bao doesn't. Oh, thank you for coming on. Bao does not speak perfect English, so Cindy is here to translate. Bao,
I'm gonna help.
you're going to translate. Bao, you are a true hero, and we want to get to your story of how you got Kim, Precious Pearl, but you were a Marine, a South Vietnamese Marine. Tell me about joining the Marines, joining the Marine.
Khi nào tía vô lính
là năm 1968.
He joined Marine when 1968.
Về phục vụ cho binh chủng thủy quân lục chiến cho tới năm 1975. Mất nước.
He came and served in the Marine until 75.
Okay, and so by the time of the first battle of Quang Tri City, which was a big battle that Americans don't know that much about because there weren't that many Americans involved, but it was a big battle. And so by the time of the first battle of Quang Tri City in 1972, you had already been in the military for 4 years. And your job was to blow up a bridge?
Thì cái cuộc chiến đó rất là khủng khiếp, mà mẹ của Kim đã chết trên con đường đó. Trên con đường đó chết khoảng là 3.000 người trở lên.
So yeah, like you say, he said that it's the big time, very, very sad. In that row, it's like it had like 3,000 body would die on that row. Wow. And there it had Kim mother and Kim also there.
And you were just about to blow up the Michan, yeah, Michan Bridge.
Michan, yeah.
Michan Bridge.
Yeah.
Quảng Trị. Cái cầu đó bị chắn Quảng Trị. Cái đó là tuyến cuối cùng không có cho Việt Cộng qua.
That's the last one that before to let the commandant come over. So he's supposed to blow up that bridge.
Yeah, so let me tell to our viewers, this is the battle, a big battle that takes place in Quang Tri City. And Quang Tri is north of Hue, it's in I Corps, it's near the DMZ. And it's a very large battle, tens of thousands killed and wounded. Americans don't know that much about it because it took place in 1972 when Americans had largely pulled out, though there were maybe 80 or 100 Americans as part of the battle. And Bao's job was, as the South Vietnamese military was being pushed south out of Quang Tri, they wanted to make sure that the communists, the North Vietnamese, weren't able to capture and pursue all the civilians leaving Quang Tri City. So Bao's job was to blow up the last remaining bridge crossing the Michan River. And just as you were about to blow up the bridge, from what I've read, an old man with a hat was crossing the bridge. Is that true?
Trong lúc trước khi mà tía cho nổ mìn cái đó, phải có một người đã chạy qua đưa cho tía cái nón không?
Khi đó là chiều rồi, cái ngày đó là cái ngày 1 tháng 5 đó, là chiều rồi. Thì cái cầu đã được đặt mìn để sẵn sàng cho vượt sập nếu mà thấy Việt Cộng tới.
So he remember it's May 1st, It's like in the afternoon, and that's the last one. They already set up the bomb and everything, and they were just like, if we see it, that will be done.
Khi đó thì chỉ còn có một người cuối cùng thì thấp thoáng ở bên kia cầu mà họ đi mà có ôm cái nón lá.
And then it's in the evening. It's kind of a little darker, not so bright. He saw the man on the other end of the bridge, holding something because it's kind of a little far. So he can tell that the man is holding something, but not really until he walk over closer.
Khi mà ổng đi qua được tới giữa cầu thì tôi ra tôi đón ổng rồi tôi đưa về chỗ an toàn.
So when my dad would met that man in the middle of the bridge, and during that time, a lot of people with his friend or his soldier with him that don't encourage him to walk over there because it could be the ambush or something like that. But he was like, I need to do this. So he meet that man in the middle of the bridge because they would say that could be he could hold a bomb or something, then you will be lost your life over there. And then so he did that.
Rồi ổng đưa cho tôi cái nón lá và ổng nói là ở trong này có một em bé mà khi tôi chạy qua đây thì tôi thấy là mẹ nó đã chết rồi mà nó đương bò trên ngực của mẹ nó đi tìm vú nó bú. Tôi thấy tôi chịu không được, thành ra tôi tôi giao cho Phi Quý.
So that man hand the draw head and then also explained it to my dad that in this draw head is the baby, a baby girl that I found in a dead woman that she crying, tried to get nerve while her mother already passed away.
So let me emphasize that for our viewers. About this baby, the old man who was carrying the baby in the conical hat said that he found the baby alive, clinging to her mother, who was dead in the street, and the baby was trying to nurse the dead mother. And so the man picked up the baby and put her in a hat and gave her to Bao. And then what did you do, Bao? I mean, you're fighting a war. You can't carry around a baby.
Tía đang chiến đấu mà đang ở trong cái battlefield mà tại sao mà Tía lại nhận cái baby đó?
Tại vì lúc đó là Tía có nhận cái nhiệm vụ rồi di tản tất cả những người nào ở trong cái vùng đương chiến tranh đó là ra cái khu an toàn mà từ sáng cho tới giờ đó là Tía di chuyển không biết bao nhiêu là đồng bào đi về vùng an toàn.
His job is to move all the residents to the safe place, and all day from the morning until that afternoon that he been trying to do that to help out all the residents at that Quảng to move in more closer to Huế or Da Nam. So the whole day, that's the last one, and they're gonna explode that bridge. But so, luckily.
So Kim was the last, really like the last civilian, very last civilian to escape Quang Tri after that big battle. Wow, So what did you then do with the baby, Bao?
Tí làm cái gì sau đó khi Tí nhận được baby rồi Tí làm gì?
Lúc đó là tôi còn độc thân, thành ra tôi không biết về em bé là để nuôi em bé như thế nào. Thì tôi có ông tài xế thì ông có gia đình. Thì ông nói biểu mày bây giờ nó khóc giờ làm sao Tài, ông tài xế tên Tài thì ông nói biểu ông lấy nước á, cho nó như thay cho sữa đi, đưa cho miệng cho nó cũng như là có nước để mà nó tưởng là sữa để nó đừng khóc nữa.
So at that time he's still single and he didn't know anything about the baby or taking care of baby, but luckily his driver been married and have kids, and then he hold in because his driver driving the truck or the military truck or something, and he would just say, you just use the water and dip your finger and put it in her mouth, and she would suck on his little finger with the water. That's what stopped her crying.
That stopped her crying.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Nó khóc.
She cried,
Rối luôn.
and then she was like, he got nervous and he got freaked out too. He like, I don't know what, but his driver, his name died. He would just like, I'm driving, so you figured it out, and that's what you should do, and that's what.
Mà cũng hên lại cái con nhỏ này cũng dễ thương, là cho nó mấy giọt cái là nó nín khe, mà tôi từ đó mà đi tới cái chỗ về Phong Điền, cách đó 20 cây số thì tôi mới giao cho phòng xã hội của Tiểu Quân Lục Chiến.
20 cây số là bao nhiêu mẹ?
Khoảng 15 mai.
Luckily, she is a good baby, so just a few drops of water from his pinky, then she just settled, and then it's a long way because from there to the Hương Điền, the little like
Mỹ Chánh, về Phong
Điền. From Mỹ Chánh to Hương Điền, that is like about 15 to like 18 miles. And then so with the bumpy road and everything, maybe that's why she falls asleep too.
You know, we have a question from the Facebook side. Ellie, I think you put it in the waiting room, but I read it here. Tina, I think it's Tina Pettigrew maybe from Facebook asked, was the man who gave you the baby from North Vietnam or South Vietnam? I'm guessing he was from Quang Tri City, which would be South Vietnam.
Sao biết được? Để nói một chút đi rồi con nói. Cái người mà cái ông mà đưa cho
đưa em bé đó, ông đó có nói thế là ông là lính quân cụ của tiểu khu Quảng Trị, ông chạy giặc, ông là người lính của Quảng Trị.
He said that when he saw my dad in the uniform, so he knew, so he would say that he's a soldier from Quảng Trị. And then so at this point, he could not get her to the safe place. So that's the reason why he would ask my dad to,
right,
you know, carry on. Yeah.
Right. So that man, the man who...
Nếu mà tôi gặp lại người lính đó, tôi có thể nhận ra họ với điều kiện là họ nói đúng cái điều mà đúng giống như câu chuyện của cô Kim. Ông nói gì chứ với tôi và tôi cho ông ăn cái gì. Nếu mà người nào nói đúng cái mật khẩu đó.
Even at this time, at this point, if that man would come to him, he can he have some words to ask that man, and he been given to that man something to eat right before he let that man walk back over there, because he want to go back there and find his family.
Oh.
So he would recognize it. He was identity that man.
And
at this point.
You know, I want to remind the viewers that we're talking about the middle of a devastating war, destruction and death all around on the road. The city was destroyed. I mean, this was an awful situation. And Bao, you took the time to care for a little baby when you had a lot of other things to do. You're a real hero.
So ông nghĩ là tại trong cái chuyện này là devastate, những cái chiến tranh đang giữa lúc chiến tranh mà Tía đã dành thời gian để mà cứu một đứa bé. Tía là một người hùng. Tía muốn nói về là tại sao.
Tôi muốn nói về cái trường hợp của Kim á, là nó là hy hữu mà cái mới có cái câu chuyện này. Tôi nghĩ rằng đó, nếu mà không có việc mà tôi đặt tên cho Kim á, thì tôi cũng không biết tên Kim là ai.
Không mà Tía là
tôi không nghĩ rằng tôi là anh hùng đâu. Tôi chỉ làm một việc bình thường của một người lính, mà đó là cái trách nhiệm bổn phận của người lính. Thấy người ta hoạn nạn, nhất là một em bé rất là tội nghiệp, thì tôi phải cứu thôi.
Thank you for thinking of me that I'm a hero, but at the human being and at the soldier, and with under any circumstance, he would do that for anyone, and hopefully everyone will do that for everybody else out there too, right?
Oh, how wonderful. Wonderful. So you took that baby about 37 miles south to Da Nang, to an orphanage, Sacred Heart Orphanage in Da Nang.
No,
Was it Da Nang?
he did not. No, he did not. It's only about 18 mile
Okay.
to this. Yeah, and then because he still had work to do, so he gave it to like a red card, right? So people there would accept the baby from him and would ask him, can you give her a name if any chance that that you might can come back later and take care of her or something like that. So that's why.
Từ ở Huế tôi vô Đà Nẵng tới gần 70 mile nữa.
Yeah, because from Huế, which is a little bit closer to Da Nang, is another 70 mile, and he not supposed to be out there yet. He's still over here trying to, you know, move in and saving people to the safe place.
And I'm going to show people a picture of you, Bao. Look at that. Is that you?
Nó ra 20 tuổi mới vô quân trường, mới vô quân trường.
Only 20 years old, just starting.
So yeah. That's 1968, right when you joined the Marines.
Yeah.
There you are. What made you, Bao, why did you name Kim Precious Pearl?
Tại sao mình tới đặt tên cho chị Bích là như vậy? Không nói cho. So this story, I'm sorry, my dad not gonna say so much, but I have a lot to say. Just because this story, at that time, he already dating my mom at that time, and he would tell him, you know how like young love, they was like, okay, when we gonna have a baby, the first baby girl, we're gonna name her this, and then if it's the boy, we're gonna name him this. And then so my dad is Trần Khắc Bao, my mom is Trần Dương Thị Bao, is the B. B-A-O is my dad, B-A-U is my mom, and then so that's why it Ngọc Bích is B-I-N-B-I-C-H. It will be the first girl, which is Kim. I'm sorry I say this against it. But so that's the reason why the name is coming up for, because when the lady asked my dad about the name in the baby, and he was just like, this is almost like my first child, you know, I hold in my hand and it's a baby. So right away he gave her the name and the last name, because only to count in that one of his first daughter, first child. So after all that, he came back and see my mom and told my mom, okay, here's the thing, you can't name that anymore because I already gave it to another baby.
Isn't that
baby girl? And my mom even like, what is the deal here? You have a child with another woman and now you take it away. So that is where it comes from.
What a wonderful story. And I have to tell people that when we were talking just briefly before we went on air, you and Kim were talking back and forth to each other, and you called Kim sis, like sister.
Yeah.
So you kind of think of her as a sister.
I sure do, because my dad is always influenced and talk about it. And I don't know, I jumped this a little bit too far, but with the magazine, one morning me and my mom was in the kitchen, and then he come up with holding the magazine, And he was like, I found my girl. I found my girl. And then we both look at him like, are you insane? What are you talking about? He would just say, here, look at this. Trần Thị Ngọc Bích is my girl.
But then when you called Kim, she didn't believe you at first.
No. At beginning, I'm not even like dare to go. I'm very, I don't want to be, people think that, you know, we shirt out for something other than that.
Right.
But then, he tried to get me involved into contact her, and I would say no. And then I don't, because I was like, no, I don't want them, anybody to think like, you know, we want something. I don't want to. But he would just like, no. In here, he say that she feel like what happened. She wonder what happened. Do my parents not want me or something? Oh, I want to contact her, and I want to tell her that that's not true. Is her parent died. It's not like they don't want her. They give her up for any other reason, just because I just want to give her the closure. Then that's all. And then I would just say, I don't want to involve into this. This looks so, you know, it looked like a miracle, because how do you can find somebody and with all this time and that is the coincidence, but it's almost like a miracle.
It is absolutely, it's a miracle. And Cindy, I want to tell our viewers, fill them in a little bit. You're joining us tonight from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And yes. Your father, Bao, came to the U.S. from Vietnam in 1994.
94, yes. September.
1994. And, you know, I want to remind our viewers that Bao still had, after he handed Precious Pearl over to the Red Cross and then over to an orphanage, Bao still had to fight a war for another 3 years. And you were there for the fall of Saigon. You were there for the takeover, the North Vietnamese takeover of South Vietnam. And the really scary part, I think, for a lot of our viewers, is that you spent 6 years in a re-education camp.
Mấy năm bà tù?
7 năm.
Almost 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Could you tell us, Cindy?
I didn't, when my when my older brother was born, not even like a year old, and then my mother pregnant in me, that when they kept my dad. So I don't see my dad until much later on.
Oh, really? So you didn't see your dad for a long time?
At first, when he came home, I do not want him to sleep in the same room with us.
Right, because he was a stranger.
Stranger danger.
Oh, wow.
Bình cũng giống như anh Kim vậy. Nó sinh ra tôi đâu có biết nó nói là con nó, tại vì tôi ở tù.
My name is Bin, it's B-I-N-H. So it's mean like peace, you know, liberty, because I was born in 75, and he say that me and Kim is the same, like two of his child, but he don't never be there to witness the birth. He could.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the re-education camp was like? 7 years or no?
Ở trong tù á, Tí có thể kể cho họ nghe một chút xíu nào đó không?
Cái đó không có thể nào mà diễn tả hết, tại vì nó khổ quá, thiếu thốn đủ thứ hết, và nó bị hành hạ từ cái tinh thần cho tới thể xác.
There's so much to say, and there are no words to describe that. He feel like he got mentally, physically, like abusing or
tortured.
Yeah, torture.
Oh.
So that's so many. There's a lot of his friend that not able to make it, and
đa số những người mà ở tù về, cái đầu óc của họ không còn minh mẫn nữa.
He feel like a lot of them that come out from the recycling camp. Their brand, their mind is not clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It broke them. It broke them. They didn't come back the same person. Oh boy.
The same. Yeah.
They didn't come back the same. And then one last question, and then I want to open it up for some questions. I know people who are viewing might have questions for you. What was it like to come to the United States? And same to you, Cindy. What was it like to come to the United States?
Oh, this is heaven on earth. I came here when I about to be 19-year-old already. So I fully know everything, like in Vietnamese language, beside culture, beside everything else. And then I was so blessed to have really close to my both of my parents, my mom and my dad. And so they with you to see that we live together. So at dinner, I'm so lucky that we go back and catch up something, and they get to tell me and educate for me to know a little bit more. But living here is
Nên nó ổn là tôi mà được mạnh khỏe mà mập mạp như vậy cũng nhờ chính phủ luôn. Chứ tôi nhìn lại cái hình mà tôi mới qua Mỹ đó, là có 37 kg là khoảng 70 pound.
Chưa tới hơn đó.
70 pound.
About like 80 something. So he said that he looked really healthy and glowing because here, because when we first came here, he's like about 87 pounds. When we first came here.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I'm gonna find a. I don't think we take picture that much, but
Kim thấy.
Kim saw it, right?
Wow.
When you're here, we show you the picture, but I would find and text you it.
Wow. Well, let me open it up to our viewers here on the Zoom side and on the Facebook side. Does anybody have any questions for our wonderful guest today? Oh my gosh. I tell you, Precious Pearl. Yeah, Bob Miswa. Let's put you up here. Bob. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. I want to let people know that you're a Vietnam veteran and you served in Vietnam in 1971?
1970 through 1971, and I was based out of Quang Tri.
Okay.
I was with the 1st to the 77th Armor out of Quang Tri. And I want to know if Mr. Tran, was he born and raised in the Quang Tri area?
Good question. Let me ask you. Yeah, where are you from, Bao?
Đến từ đâu? Tía sinh đẻ ở đâu?
Ở Bình Dương.
He no sir. He was born in Bình Dương, which is close to Saigon on the and then he was signed up the school over there, and then
so his
unit
unit was moved north.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And what was?
But no, he not. He wasn't born at the. He not. But my mom did. My mom is from Hue, so that's where
From
they.
Hue, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And I should let also our viewers know that, and maybe you know, that our group, the Veterans Breakfast Club, has done 2 trips to Vietnam with Vietnam veterans, some of whom are with us tonight. We went in 2018, and then we also went just this past February, and we were at Quang Tri. We went to Quang Tri, and we, studied about the battle there. And we have Chad Riddle went with us, Larry Woods, Ben Wright here, and just a wonderful, fascinating trip. And I want to tell you too that we really fell in love with Vietnam and the Vietnamese people. And so this story is very close to our hearts.
Ông đi về hồi năm 18, and then hồi January sẽ đi về cùng với thêm nhưng
I
mà
agree.
làm
I agree,
rất
John DeLallo. Amen.
làm rất
Amen.
nhiều về cho những người lính mà ở bên Việt Nam. Dạ.
Do we have any other questions for Bao or Cindy or Kim, Precious Pearl? And we can call you Precious Pearl, right, Kim?
Whatever you like. This is your show.
I chime in with a question. Kim, this is for you. So what was your drive to serve? Was it your dad's service that sort of drove you to join? And you served 17 years, is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, I knew that I had a life of service. I was very attracted to the military structure, the discipline. You know, my dad being Air Force, I mean, I had to make my bed with square corners starting in kindergarten. So, I mean, making a bed was easy for me.
And you ironed your jeans?
I ironed my blue jeans. I was an ensign in the Navy until when someone finally told me that real people don't iron blue jeans, and I'm like, really? But I mean, that's how we grew up. I was told growing up I was to iron all the clothes that I wanted to wear. Otherwise, I would be wearing the clothes that my dad ironed for me. Well, I'll be ironing everything. So. But yeah, no, I always wanted to serve. And then when the opportunity to go to the Naval Academy came up, then I jumped at it and served for 17 years as a surface warfare officer.
And you were a surface warfare officer. So you served on several different ships and on land. Mm-hmm. And you also did 2 interesting years as a White House military social aide.
Yeah, so that was actually, I did 5 years as a White House military social aide from 2007 to 2012. So 2 years with Bush 43 and a few years with President Obama. And I mean, that's for an officer stationed in the DC area anyway, that is the ultimate fly on the wall experience, right? To be a White House military social aide. You get to meet people that you would never get to meet at Ralph's or Kmart or Walmart or Target. You meet people, world leaders, and people who have literally changed this world. So it was a great experience.
What an experience is, right? Are you going to write a tell-all book someday?
There are people that keep asking me for a book, and I'm like, one of these days when I get some free time, I seem to keep every time I turn around, I keep getting more and more stuff, piled onto my things to do. So
one follow up is how did you process that? Like when you found out about Bao and how did you come to realize like, oh, this is the true story here?
So actually, like I said, the first few emails that I got from them was, I know how you got to the orphanage in Da Nang, call me. I'm like, nobody knows that. The nuns didn't know that. So why on earth would someone in 2012 be contacting me to tell me that? But then we finally connected on the phone, and they told me the story. And so what I actually had asked them to do was write it out. So Bao actually wrote out in a letter to me how he found me. And I did it for a couple reasons, right? I wanted to see if what he told me on the phone was the same as what was written. And then what I took was this letter. Yeah, I know, Cindy, you're looking, and then what I did was I took the letter and I sent it to a couple friends of mine who are Vietnam veterans who were retired admirals. One, Admiral Joe Mobley, who was a POW at the Hanoi Hilton. And then Vice Admiral Willie Moore. And they both had served in Vietnam. And so actually it was Admiral Moore who emailed me back and he said, Kim, he said, I've read the letter. I know your story. He said, I flew missions off the carrier during that time. He said, back then they didn't have Xerox machines. They didn't have iPhones and cell phones to document everything. He said, the timing is right. He said, what you need to figure out is, does your heart believe what Bao Tran is telling you? And he said, if your heart believes what Bao Tran is telling you, he said, that's really the only thing you can go on. And one of the things in the letter that I remember that Bao Tran sent me is he said, you know, I don't want anything from you. He said, I just want to let you know how your story, what your story was, and that I hope you're happy.
Oh.
You know, and so, I mean, for that right there to tell me that, I mean, so that's when we started making plans to meet at a Starbucks. And I don't know if you know the story about our meeting, is that we went back then, I was traveling for the chairman all around the country. And so, but
The
it wasn't
chairman of
like,
the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mellon.
yes. And so it wasn't like Albuquerque actually was one of the cities on my travel list. So after talking with Cindy and communicating with her and the family, we finally decided that because I was going to be in LA the end of March 2013, that it seemed to work out that my last engagement that I was scheduled to be at was on a Thursday, and that I looked up flights that I could fly from LAX to Albuquerque Thursday evening, get a hotel room, and then Friday morning we would meet at Starbucks, have a cup of coffee, high five, fist bump, hug it out, say thanks a lot. And then there was a flight to get back to DC that left at 4 p.m. that afternoon because it was Easter weekend. And I kind of wanted to be back in DC for Easter weekend. And so Cindy's like, anything, we just want to meet you. This is whatever you can do is great. So we started planning it. And I wasn't going to tell anybody about my travels to my travel to Albuquerque, but then I ended up telling the Army colonel that I worked with at Dixon Center. And it just happened that we were in New York City. And I was telling Dave, I said, you know, when we're in LA in March, he's like, yeah. I said, well, when you come back to DC, I said, I'm going to take a quick trip to Albuquerque. He's like, why on earth are you going to Albuquerque? And I said, well, there's this guy and apparently he like got me off a bridge and I somehow gave me my Vietnamese name and got me to the orphanage, something like that. And Dave's like, what do you mean you're going to Albuquerque to meet? He's like, who's going with you? I said, no one's going with me. I'm going by myself. He goes, oh, no. He goes, I'm going to go with you. And so the next day, it just happened that we were having dinner with some friends of ours, one of whom is one of the senior executives at CBS Corporation. And of course, Dave can't keep a secret, which is one of the reasons why I never didn't want to tell him. But sure enough, during the dinner, Dave blabs, Kim and I are going to Albuquerque in March to meet the South Vietnamese Marine who saved her life. And of course, then the executive that we were having dinner was like, oh my God, we need to cover this. We need to make sure that the media is there. Like, yeah. I literally, all of a sudden, it was out of my hands. And so he's like, oh, you know, Scott Pelley, at that time it was Henry Schuster. Call Henry Schuster when you get back to DC, tell him what's going on and he can make a plan. So Henry Schuster is one of the producers for 60 Minutes. And so we called Henry, had breakfast with Henry down in DC. Henry's like, oh, this is good stuff. I'm seeing Scott Pelley tonight. Well, we're going to figure out how we're going to cover this. So we went back and forth and they didn't really know how they were going to do it, but they wanted to have a camera crew with us in Albuquerque to capture the moment. Media, they want to capture the moment. Yeah. Which I found out, which means they want to see you cry, right? That's lingo for media. They want you to get the emotion. And so it was while we were in LA the day before, I got a phone call from a journalist from the Albuquerque Journal. And he called me and he said, we know you're coming into town tomorrow. He said, I've already met with Bao Tran and his family. I've already interviewed them. I want to interview you. Oh my God. And he said, you're going to be on the front page of the paper. Oh my God. And then we're going to cover the reunion and you are going to be on the front page of the paper. You didn't sign up for that. 2 days in a row. And I was like, well, that's great, but why? He's like, well, one, we know CBS National is coming into town. And he said, we also realize that every station is going to be at this meeting that you and Bao Tran have set up. And I was like, okay. And he said, oh, by the way, it's not at Starbucks. We've moved there. Your meeting's now been moved to the Vietnamese Community Center. And I said, well, great, but why? I don't understand why. I said, this is, March 29th. I don't get it. Why? And he said, Kim, because March 29th is the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. And he said, this is the biggest thing happening in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't a day that we had planned for that specific reason. It just is the day that fit into my travel schedule. And so
well, one last question. Did you cry for the camera, I hope?
Yeah. That's the 5 hours that they followed me around. The 30 seconds that I got choked up is exactly what ended up on Steve Hartman's On the Road when they covered our reunion. And I apparently in 2 minutes I can make people cry.
And what I love is that like instantly Bao began to kind of treat you as a daughter, kind of saying like, why are you traveling so much? You should settle down.
Yeah, they worry that I don't eat very well, because I eat pizza and tacos and hamburgers. I don't eat a whole lot of pho.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Do we have any other question? Ken Rozicki, you had a question here. I see that you had a question for the chat. Let me spotlight you. How are you doing, Ken?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm sorry I'm late joining the broadcast. I have a 6-year-old grandson, and he was playing a little baseball game today. So he takes priority. I'm sorry.
We understand.
Yeah, I knew about this story, and I'm sorry that I didn't hear the beginning of it. So I don't know exactly where Bao Tran found the baby, and so I apologize to everybody. You already heard all that part of it.
Yeah, just south of Quang Tri. South of Quang Tri, between Way and
okay.
Yeah.
I was stationed up in first Phu Bai and then Dong Ha, and I just wondered if Bao Tran had been in that area at all, either as a soldier or a civilian.
Okay, I'm sure he has. Let me unmute him.
Yes, sir. My dad said that Phu Bai and
Có cái căn cứ của Mỹ ở Phú Bài nhiều lắm, coi như là ở Huế là tí chỗ nào tí cũng đi hết.
Yeah, the cover from Quang Tri to like Huế down, not past Huế, which is that close to Da Nang. He not out there, but over this side out, then he have been.
I have a question for you, Bao. I taught a course on the history of Vietnam in War and Peace. And I taught a lot about the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, ARVN. But I don't know much about the South Vietnamese Marines. How were South Vietnamese Marines different from South Vietnamese Army?
Sự khác biệt giữa Marine với cái Army.
Marine cũng như bên này ở đây là cũng còn Marine, là Army là bộ binh.
Không, tiếng làm cái gì là khác biệt?
Khác biệt của binh chủng thủy quân chiến với bộ binh đó là thủy quân chiến là lính thủy đánh bộ, tức là lính ở dưới nước mà đánh ở trên bộ. Okay. Còn cái kia là nó đánh trên bộ không thôi.
Okay. So he say that from the Marine is the soldier for like the water, but also go for on land also, but not the other one. And
in the United States, the Marines have a reputation for being really tough. Really tough.
Okay.
Do they have the same reputation in South Vietnam?
It sure does. Ở bên đó là nếu mà lính thủy quân lục chiến là thứ nhất, còn cái lính đường bộ là không có bằng.
Yeah, đúng rồi.
Yeah.
Tại vì ở Việt Nam lúc đó là có hai cái binh chủng, nhảy dù với thủy quân chiến là cái chủ lực của quân đội.
The man two side is the military and the airport. Is the two men one. So
right.
Is that answer?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I want to,
he's really feel powerful when he's is a Marine.
Oh, yes. So you have a lot in common with some of the Marines here with us tonight.
Yeah. Nói là giống mấy người ở đây cũng có thủy quân lục chiến đó, cũng là anh hùng lắm.
John DeLallo.
Number one.
Number one, Marine Corps number one. John DeLallo, Mac likes that. John DeLallo, I know that you're reacting to all this like I am. I just wanted to give you a chance to say what you think about what you've heard tonight.
Well, Todd, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm absolutely choked up for Kim and for Tran and for his daughter. I mean, this is humanity at its best. I mean, this is the best thing that you have ever pulled out of the war that I participated in, and I thank you for it. And without apologies, I've been kind of clearing my eyes out here a little bit. Must be the
allergies. Probably allergies.
Must be the pollen count.
But definitely.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Clem.
I got a question. Bao and Cindy mentioned about
yes, sir.
Coming to the United States in 1994. How difficult was it to get out of Vietnam? Did you have to get government approvals? What did you have to go through to do that? And another question, you still have any family members in Vietnam?
Great question, Clem. Great question.
Yes, sir. When we left, there's a lot of paperwork and interview, just because my dad qualified to come over here because the Catholic associate sponsor us, which is they pay for us fly over here. But before all that, we still have to go in the process that to go to apply and then put more paperwork and all that for them to qualify for us to come here, which is it's very, what I would understand that my parents had to borrow money from our relative, a few hundred, let's say that, and to put in the paperwork and to get us to the office, because if it's not, you don't even get there to put in your paperwork. And but even our relative give us the money or anything, it's almost like a gamble. If for something, some question go wrong or whatever that we miss, we might not able to get to go, just because they don't qualify, we don't qualify. And for that, I don't know how we're gonna repay the money that we borrow. And also when we get here is my dad have a sister that at that time she came to United States in California about 2 years before that, and we were just like, okay, can you sponsor us to go there? And she was like, okay. And then for last minute, she decided that she don't want to sponsor us anymore because she don't want the responsibility, which is that understand, because our whole entire family, and she is older, she's not working. So after that, our paperwork and everything will get back more, because, and then at that point we kind of worry that we might not miss the chance, that we might not get to go. And for another time, to put out some money to get again, reapply again. And then they would just say, so where do you want to go now? So my dad would say, anywhere in the United States, if you want to put us there, we're going to survive, we're going to live. And they would say, okay, we put you to New Mexico. And then we all was like, no, Mexico. We want to go to the United States. We know one of Mexico.
That's a good.
Close by. We never educate. You would never know anything. But then even to Mexico, we go into Mexico. Even if that's a chance, you know, we to get out of Vietnam, we go to Mexico. But even that, so that's why we end up here, because they was like, we're gonna put to Albuquerque. At that time, I can't even pronounce that or anything. And then so when we came here, it's in the evening. To be honest, we all were like, look. I don't know, you all know that the house built here is very flat roof, you know, like an adobe house. So we all looking down from the airplane, and that's the first time we ever flew, because we never get a chance to be on the airplane. But anyway, we're looking down and we was like, we are in Mexico, really.
I love that. And you know, the viewers should know that people like officers like you who served in the South Vietnamese Marines or the Army really, really suffered after 1975 and were very, very poor. I read that, Bao, you were a cyclo driver, which is a rickshaw driver. I mean, that you worked very, very, very hard. Then when you came to the United States, you worked very, very, very hard to feed your family. And so thank you. Thank you for all that you've done. And thank you for joining us.
Back in Vietnam, he worked really hard. He driving that cycle. Excuse me?
Yeah, he was a cyclo driver. And what else did he do in Vietnam?
And he was so skinny, and then there's the customer and have the stuff on it, and it knocked backward and knocked his teeth off.
Oh, it's horrible.
And we do, but yeah, but it's like, and then we are. I got to go. We have a little stuff out in the sidewalk. And then we like pumping air to the bicycle and get some money. And he worked really hard. So that's why when we came here, I am and all my siblings, we working for him not to work too hard.
Right.
It's our turn.
Oh. Cindy, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you, Bao, for coming on and telling your story. Thank you so much. I just want to, Cindy, you should make sure that your dad's story gets recorded somehow, because he is an important, I'm a historian and his story is history. Make your daughter, Emily, write his story down.
I do.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. And we've come just about to the end of our program, and I do want to thank again Bao Tran and his daughter Cindy for coming on and sharing this wonderful story. And Kim Mitchell, thank you again so much for joining us. We didn't even get really much into your career, which I would love to hear about another time. And maybe when we talk about Navy cakes or another kind of, you know, important issue like that, you could come on and maybe share some of your knowledge of Navy cake baking. Or just about your career as a surface war officer. We do like to end with song. Do we have, yeah, we still have Mac with us. Mac, would I be pushing it if I were to ask you to lead us in God Bless America?
Oh, Where is he?
Oh, there you are.
Is Irmgard not here tonight, huh?
Oh, I should tell people, no, Irmgard just contacted me and she said she learned last night that her younger brother passed away. And so she is not feeling up to singing, but will definitely be here next week to give us a good German drinking song with the accordion. So instead, we're going to have Mac. Mac, would you mind leading us?
Yeah, not a problem.
This is God Bless America. Thank you so much, Mac.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you so much, Mac. Thank you so much. Wonderful. What a wonderful program. And I do hope to see you all again. Kim, I hope to see you again. Bao, thank you again. Good night, everybody. Take care. And I hope to see you Wednesday, 1 o'clock. All right. Take care.